Hey everyone, Two-Tone back, this time not with gameplay, but with a Spyral deck tech. I've had a lot of people ask me what kind of deck I run, and while I do run like multiple variations of Spyral, like Dangers and Control, this is the main list I tend to run, and the one I've taken to tournaments, like, Decade or MBT's tournaments. This is the one I like the most. The only card in here that I'm really kind of on and off with is Foolish Burial Goods and Maxi. I'll get to those in a second, though. Let's get into it, and let's start with the Spyral creatures. I can't really sort this how I want, because the Master Duel doesn't let you like move the cards around for demonstration purposes. So I'm just gonna like try to hit every topic, but I'm gonna group them together. So the main part of Spyral is the Spyral engine, which primarily revolves around this guy, Quick Fix. This guy's a +2 on legs. If you normal summon, you can go get a gear, which includes your drone, your last resort, and your big red, and a couple of other cards you don't see as often. And he can, if you have a super agent on the field, you can discard a card, hopefully a mission, and you can special summon to the field, and he gets his effect again. So when you play him, he gets +1, and when you revive him, you get a +1. So that's just great, right? It's a +2 on a card. He's restricted for that same reason, primarily due to machine duplication. This card plus machine duplication can technically be like a +7, though the quality of the card you're getting isn't always great. And we'll get to that in a second. Next up is Spiral Gear Drone. A lot of versions of this deck will run 3 of this guy because it kind of works as a starter if you have a Super Agent too. This is a little 2-card combo that I've demonstrated on the channel before, but you need to have at least one, and that's where I settled at. Normally you search them out through your Quick Fix loops. This card, upon summon, stacks top 2 cards of your opponent's deck, turning on your Super Agent and your Helix. You can also, it's got a couple of other like less often used effects that are kind of neat. It can buff your Spiral monsters by 500 for each card your opponent controls. Against like heavy back row decks, that can be a hilariously powerful attack boost. And also it kind of +1s you from the graveyard. You can like banish it and another Spiral card to get a Super Agent back to your hand. Speaking of Super Agent, here he is. This is the next card on the list. I run 2 of them, though you could get away with just 1. I like to run 2 because sometimes it's just good to draw it to have it in your hand, because you can use its effect to call the top card and special summon itself. Even if you miss, sometimes just calling the top card will turn on your double Helix when you don't have access to drone. And that's pretty nifty. He's like the heart and soul of the deck by design, even if you don't actually use him that much, because he's not really a great starter. Like, you can extend off of a drone with him, or a tough if you're going second, or you can like extend further on to the combo when you've got like a Helix already active, and he's just like a +1 body on the board that way. But he, despite the fact that a lot of Spiral cards require a Super Agent to be on the field to be useful, you don't use him as much as, say, double Helix. Next up is the hardest Garnet in the deck, Spiral Gear Last Resort. You never want to draw this because you're always searching it up with Quick Fix. This card's kind of a necessary evil because of the way it combos with Sleeper. Otherwise, you'd love to cut it because you hate drawing it. When equipped to a Spiral card, it can't be targeted by card effects, and it can't be destroyed by card effects, so it's like a really good protection on a Spiral. It is also a Spiral name, so you can search it off Resort and Master Plan as well as Quick Fix. And you can technically normal summon it. Like, say you could special summon your drone somehow, and then normal summon your Last Resort. That still goes into double Helix, because he still is a Spiral creature. Next up is another soft Garnet, is Spiral Master Plan. If you have a way to discard her, she's not really that bad as a Garnet, but, the reason you run 2 is because you can't afford to have, if you draw 1, it turns off your Magician's Soul, so you need to have the second one. Otherwise, you'd love to just get away with running 1. She is pretty busted, despite being a 7-star monster. She has the non-hard once per turn effect of getting a rescue or a assault, a mission card from your deck. So basically, as long as you can loop her with discards, you can constantly get the rescue mission that revives her, and then gets to another rescue mission, and then revives her and gets another rescue mission. That's like the core of the Spiral combo, is her recurring herself through discard outlets and rescue missions. She also has the incredibly busted effect of when you send her from the field to the graveyard, usually as a link summon, you can get a resort and a Spiral monster to your hand. That's a +2 whenever you're linking her off, and which is insane. This is like the main effect you don't want to get Ash, because that's like so powerful. Next up is, and the last of our creatures is Sleeper. This is like the big in-archetype payoff for doing the Spiral shenanigans. This card's incredibly powerful, though a little risky. You can special summon him only by banishing 3 Spiral cards. There's no other way to get around that. And once per turn, you can blow up a Spiral card you control to pop 2 cards on your opponent's side of the field on either turn. So, like, you're popping 2 cards on your opponent's turn and on your turn. That's incredibly powerful. Downside is, if he does get destroyed, it blows up your entire board and you special summon a super agent, which is cute sometimes, but not amazing, and not something you want to be going for. That's why when you play this guy, you equip a last resort to him. He can now no longer be destroyed by card effects, so you can target himself, destroy nothing, and then destroy 2 of your opponent's cards. And he's incredibly powerful, and is like one of the main reasons you run Spyral, because despite being a good link climbing deck, this is also an incredible payoff for that link climbing. Next up in Spyral cards is Big Red. This is one of the Spyral Gears cards that you can get off Quick Fix, and is the primary like extender that Quick Fix enables. It's a in archetype Monster Reborn that it kind of works like Premature Burial, except as an equip card. But if you destroy it or get rid of it off a Magician Soul's draw, it doesn't actually destroy the monster. So it's a much better in archetype Premature Burial. Next up, oh, and a hard once per turn. If this card wasn't hard once per turn, this deck could go off in crazy ways with Quick Fix. Thankfully, that's probably a good thing that it isn't able to do that. Next up is Spyral Resort, another card that suffers from the Master Plan problem and the Quick Fix problem of not being a hard once per turn. You can keep playing Spyral Resorts on top of Spyral Resorts to just go get every Spyral card from your deck. Often, your Spyral Resort is being used to grab Sleeper because there's no other real way to search it besides Master Plan. Secondary effect. But if you draw more than one, or you get into more than one somehow, you can play it and get a super agent. You can play it and go search up your Quick Fix, all sorts of things. It also gives your Spyral creatures protection from being targeted, and that's really good with a Spyral Last Resort combo, because if you have Resort, now your opponent can't Twin Twisters your Last Resort. They can't target it. So they have to destroy your Resort, then destroy your Last Resort, then destroy your Sleeper, just to be able to target him with anything. So that's an incredibly powerful layer of protection. It also protects your combo somewhat from cards like Effect Veiler and Infinite Impermanence, right? Because if you have a Resort on the field when you start doing your Quick Fix loops or your Master Plan loops, they can't Effect Veiler or Infinite Impermanence it, and that's really useful. It does have the kind of negative downside of you have to return a creature from your graveyard to your deck at the end of the turn, or it blows itself up. That's not usually a problem unless your combo gets completely stymied, and sometimes you find yourself like turning your negated Quick Fix into a Link Karibo or something for that reason, just so you can send your Quick Fix back to your deck without destroying your Resort. Next is the missions, the cards that Master Plan searches out endlessly. The first one is Assault. I only run one of this because it is a hard brick in your hand almost like 95% of the time, unless you have a way to discard it. But it is necessary to do some of the combos. Generally, you're using this to special summon out your drone once you've already committed your normal summon to Quick Fix, so you can turn on your Helix and your Super Agent. That's the graveyard effect. It special summons by banishing, especially summons a Spyral from your hand by banishing itself. It does have the on-field effect of drawing cards whenever you destroy a monster, which comes up sometimes. Like when you're in a grindy control matchup and you're not really comboing off, just dropping this card on the field when you're blowing stuff up with Sleeper and Super Agent is nifty. Next up, in the final main deck Spyral card is Mission Rescue. This card is the in-arch type, like Monster Reborn from the graveyard. It banishes itself to special summon a Spyral card. This is how you loop with Master Plan constantly. You can also loop Quick Fix without banishing himself a few times by like chaining a rescue mission you discarded to the Quick Fix activation, which is pretty cool. Oh, and yeah, Quick Fix banishes himself after he revives. And the on-board effect is circumstantial, but also good in grindy matchups. Once per turn, even on your opponent's turn, you can return a Spyral from your graveyard to your hand. Like if you're in like a grindy game, like it's like Sky Strikers or something, or Eldritch, sometimes you can use this to just keep recurring Sleeper, keep recurring Super Agent, recur Quick Fix, stuff like that. And the last Spyral card is Double Helix. This is another card kind of like Super Agent. You can usually get away with just one, but it's nice to have two. This card special summons a Spyral card from your deck or graveyard by calling the top card of your opponent's deck correctly, which is why cards like Drone and Super Agent can be so powerful, because that is an incredibly powerful effect. You have to use two Spyral monsters to make them. That's not usually a problem, and that's just it, right? That one thing lets you combo off incredibly hard because it just extends you into another Spyral, which gets you either a Quick Fix or a Master Plan, usually netting you another card that usually works as extension. The other non-Spyral card that is basically part of any Spyral engine is Magician Souls. This card is probably the most powerful card in your deck besides maybe 1-for-1. It can Foolish Burial your Master Plan as a cost to special summon itself for free, and then you can send two cards from two spell or trap cards from your field or hand to draw up to two cards. That is absurd. Your deck wants to discard cards like Rescue Mission or Assault or a Spent Spiral Resort, or a Big Red, and that just draws you cards off it. So it's a discard outlet, a card draw engine, a Foolish Burial, and a free special summon all in one. It is bonkers. It is so powerful. It is the reason you run cards like Where Art Thou. If you could run 12 of this card, you would. And in the future, you might be able to, because there's some cards in Battle of Chaos or whatever that have that search for this guy that Spyral's probably going to run. After the Spiral list, I do have like the basic hand traps, Maxi, 3 Ash Blossom. Those are the only ones I would ever really run unless you're running a strict control deck or a cross-out designator package. And I've cut Maxi pretty reasonably multiple times from this deck because this deck isn't the best going second deck in the first place, and like the only card you really want to see going second a lot of times is Forbidden Droplets. But it's still powerful enough to just win games or stop your opponent's turn 1 combo. They'll just not play into it. So for that reason, it's a perfectly great card to run. Ash Blossom beats Maxi. Your deck struggles against Maxi. You gotta run it. It's just that good. Also, if you are going second, it's great to stop your opponent's chains and their combo lines. In that same note, you're playing 2 Called by the Grave because it also beats Maxi. Your hope is, whenever your opponent has Maxi, you draw one of your 5 anti-Maxi cards. You're more likely to draw them than they are Maxi, so that's like the trade-off. Now let's get into like the one-of spells and the extenders and stuff. First up is Monster Reborn. Magician Souls plus any Reborn monster effect for Master Plan is full combo in this deck, right? So Monster Reborn is a non-conditional Monster Reborn, obviously, which you can use on your opponent's cards in a pinch, but it does combo with Magician Souls. Next up is Terraforming. If you're running 3 broken field spell cards, you gotta run Terraforming. 1-for-1, I mentioned earlier, is probably the most powerful card in this deck. This card is a 1-card combo, assuming you have just a monster in your hand to discard. Discarding a Maxi off a 1-for-1, you special summon Quick Fix, go search out your drone, normal summon your drone, go into double Helix, you're off to the races, right? Quick Fix special summon stuff to get Big Red, Helix special summon out of Master Plan, and you're going off full combo. Yeah, this card is a pure 1-card combo. Then there's Where Art Thou. This card is your 4th, 5th, and 6th copies of Magician Souls, or you're like, if you count Resort and Terraforming as like 4 copies of Quick Fix, your 6th, 7th, and 8th copy of Quick Fix whenever you draw Magician Souls. And in this particular deck, it also can search out Jet Synchron, which is pretty nifty. And I'll get to Jet Synchron in a little bit. So I run 3 of this card just because, like, even though it kind of bricks sometimes when you don't draw a level 1 creature, which isn't that uncommon. Isn't that common because like you do have Spiral Resorts to go search out your Quick Fix, and Souls plus Quick Fix is a combo. I've shown that before on the channel. It's just so powerful to get into Magician Souls as often as possible that you run 3 of this card. You could cut it down to 2 because you don't usually want to see multiples, but because I'm running cards like Jet Synchron that are good ancillary targets for it, I like to run 3. Next up is Foolish Burial Goods, probably the most cuttable card in the main deck. It's a decent extender in a deck because it can turn like a Master Plan into a special summon, like a Master Plan in your hand that's usually a brick into a special summon by binning an Assault, which then lets you special summon Master Plan from your hand for free. Well, at the cost of 1 card, Foolish Burial Goods. It's a hard once per turn, so it's I don't want to run 3 because if you draw 2, you feel like crap. But it also combos hard with Magician Souls because it does represent a Master Plan revival because you can bin rescue mission. So Magician Souls plus Foolish Burial Goods is full combo in the deck, gets you to your Drygate setup. And that is, I've mentioned all of these, and the last card to mention is Droplets. Forbidden Droplets is the best going second card in the game, I would say, because it, unlike Evenly Matched, you can maintain your battle phase, and it's so good in Spirals. I've given videos before about its versatility, but it's also just a great card because it's a discard outlet for your rescues and your Assault and your Master Plan if you draw them, or your dead hand traps can be turned into negations. It's just a really good card for going second. And also going first, you can just set it, interrupt your opponent's plays, set up your graveyard, and then go off on your next turn, right? It's even a good going first card for when you brick, or just even when you combo, you can just set it as a secondary negation. Like, it's just good that way. I love this card, and it's just really, really good. I would run 3 in any version that isn't running a secondary engine that needs the space. Or like a version that maybe you might cut it in a version that's running crossout designator because you could like put infinite impermanence in the same slot and get similar utility out of it. But that's like a fringe case. Now let's get into the extra deck because I've gone through every main deck card. Sorry. Let's go into Jet Synchron and Tinny Spirited Hara, which kind of goes into the extra deck anyhow. These cards are 2 tuner cards that I kind of splash into the deck to give me access to Borreload Savage Dragon. and Crystron Halqifibrax. These two cards are incredibly powerful. Crystron Halqifibrax is obviously an automatic +1, sometimes a +2 with Jet Synchron. And then Borreload Savage Dragon is a secondary Omni Negate that the board sometimes craves because you get outed by like double spell or trap base, like evenly matched Lightning Storm, like some combination of those cards can screw up your board because you've only got one spell trap interaction with Trigate in your basic Spiral board. Jet Synchron's obviously just very good on its own merits. You could honestly run Jet Synchron without Borreload Savage Dragon because the card's level 1 for Where Art Thou. It discards. You can like use it to store a discard. As an example, this happens sometimes, right? Your Quick Fix plus Magician Souls combo, right? If you already have both cards in hand, one way or the other, you would special summon Magician Souls, bending your Master Plan. Normal summon Quick Fix to get Big Red. Activate Big Red to revive Master Plan, and the Master Plan will go search out a rescue mission. You would then use Magician Souls to draw 2 cards off your pointless Big Red and your in-hand rescue mission, and you draw 2 cards. Now you've got your combo set up, right? You've got your rescue mission and in the graveyard, and you can start linking off your Master Plan, but your usual best choice for that is Barricade Board Blocker because he chain blocks your Master Plan graveyard effect. But you don't have any card in your hand you want to discard now because you've already, used up your discards to draw cards off Magician Souls necessarily, right? Let's say you draw a bunch of hand traps. You could still do it and discard a bad card, but if you have a Where Art Thou in hand on this combo, you can just go get a Jet Synchron, go into Barricade Board Blocker, discard Jet Synchron, and now Jet Synchron is sitting in your graveyard as a discard outlet later in the turn, who then special summons onto the field, right? So when you get your rescue missions later, you can like discard a rescue mission, summon a Master Plan, Jet Synchron plus Master Plan, bam, Borreload Savage Dragon, probably using Barricade Board Blocker. And that's just like one of the many ways that Jet Synchron rounds out the deck. Even just discarding it at any point in the combo, you can, if you don't, you can just do that whenever, and you can just use it immediately to discard the rescue mission you're going to discard at that point in the combo, and you just get a +1 body on the field, right? Why not run this card? The only other tuner I think is worth running in this style of the deck is a Tiny Spirited Hara. It's also level 1, so it does combo with Master Plan to go into Borreload Savage Dragon, and it's a good card in your opening hand. That's something I wanted to maximize because the deck already bricks a lot, is like, I don't want to run any tech that I don't want to draw in my opening hand ever. This card's very good in your opening hand because you can just special summon it for free, and then any normal summon gets you into Halqifibrax. Halqifibrax would search out Jet Synchron, and that's like a 2-card Appaloosa, right? At Tiny Spirited Hara plus any creature gets you into a 3-material Appaloosa, which is really good against most decks. And it's also just an ancillary tuner that you can search out with Halqifibrax if you already got Jet Synchron in rotation. You can always go into Ash Blossom just for a creature, but you kind of want to stick to these 2 cards because they do turn on the Master Plan, Borreload Savage Dragon chain of plays. Alright, that's the whole main deck, and I've already talked about Borreload Savage Dragon a lot. Yeah, he's the secondary Omni Negate that the deck can have access to, and is the reason I kind of played these 1-star Synchro packages. Next up is Sylvan Princess Sprite. In your core Spiral combo, when you normal summon Quick Fix, then you special summon Quick Fix, again by discarding a card. Often you want to use Quick Fix a 3rd time, because the first Quick Fix will get you Big Red, the second Quick Fix will get you Drone, and the third Quick Fix is to go get Last Resort. But he does banish himself after he uses his effect, if he goes to the graveyard. So you get around that by using Princess Sprite. You would turn the drone that you searched out and special summoned and the Quick Fix into a Princess Sprite, who would then detach Quick Fix's material, which does not banish him, allowing you to Quick Fix one more time. And that maintains your material on the board. Princess Sprite is my go-to. There are other options. I just like her because it's fun to like spike an extender off of her, right? And sometimes when you have like a clogged up hand or a clogged up combo, you can just draw into the cards you need because your deck is mostly spells and traps. And once you start comboing, you get through a lot of these creatures anyhow. So it's much more likely she's going to hit than miss. Then there's Linkuriboh. I've mentioned Linkuriboh a couple times. It's a good way to get your 1-star creatures into the graveyard if you need to. Like sometimes you want to get Quick Fix in the graveyard without linking them, and you can do that without losing material by Linkuriboh. Also, it combos with Jet Synchron because if you Halqifibrax into Jet Synchron, you can turn Jet Synchron to Linkuriboh. You still have 3 link material on the board. Then you can special summon Jet Synchron. 1 + 2 + 1 = 4, and that gets you into a 3-material Appaloosa. It's just nice to have. Also, sometimes you can deck out Max C players, like someone who drops a Max C on you, and Linkuriboh's like 2 special summons in 1 turn for that reason, so that's nifty. I've mentioned Double Helix already when I was going through the Spiral cards. Obviously, this is the main linchpin of the deck. This is the thing that makes the deck a link combo deck. I've mentioned Quickshot Halqifibrax. He's the secondary reason I run the tuner package, because it's just an easy +1. His quick effect to summon a Synchro Tuner monster never comes up. And I don't think I'd ever run a Formula Synchron in this Titan extra deck just for that reason. Next up is the Nightmares, Nightmare Cerberus, Nightmare Phoenix, Nightmare Unicorn. These cards are amazing going second. They work as discard outlets, which your deck needs, that also give you on-board benefits, destroying creatures, destroying spells, traps, spinning cards. Of note, Phoenix is important in your Trigate setup. It forms the left-facing link, and it also protects your Appaloosa and your Trigate Wizard from just getting walked over by battle, so they don't get to use their effects. Sometimes you go into Cerberus when you have like one extra material. You can turn your your double helix into a Cerberus, so your tri-links, your quad link setup is immune to Igekis and lightning storms and the like, which is nifty. And Unicorn's ancillary benefit is that it also works as a secondary link-based discard outlet, because you can spin your own cards and still discard a card if you really need to discard a rescue mission or something to get the combo going. That's a good thing to remember. Next up is IP Masquerena. This card is the most cuttable card in my extra deck, besides maybe the second double helix. It doesn't come up very often. It's just like a generic Link 2. Like, remember how I mentioned that, Quick Fist plus Magician Souls combo? If I don't have a Rare Arthal and I don't want to discard something, I can just go into IP Masquerena as a Link 2. It doesn't chain block my master plan, but maybe I can suss out my opponent doesn't have an Ash. And then you can use this to go into a Masquerena or something that they can't. And so you can use this Masquerena to go into an Appaloosa or a Trigate later, and with that you get some extra value out of your Link 2 by making it unable to be destroyed by card effect. It's really, really not something you go into a lot. Like this deck, the end board you're shooting for isn't usually like leaving a Masquerena sitting on the field waiting to go into a Unicorn. That's just not what the deck does very often. But maybe you'll do that when your combo gets stifled really bad. It's something. But yeah, this is definitely a cuttable card if you wanted to explore other options. Barricade Borg Blocker. This card is great. It says Link 2, discard a card. Bada bing, bada boom. That's all you need. Master Plan plus Magician Souls combo. You link these two off, go into Barricade Borg Blocker, and discard the rescue mission you searched. That's how you combo off in this deck. You don't have Nightmare Goblin anymore, so you got to use this guy. He also chain blocks your Master Plan, which is great. Trigate Wizard. This is the card that all this link climbing is about. This card gets you into an Omni Negate. Once it's co-linked in 3 separate directions, you get the ability to Omni Negate any card, and it banishes the card you Omni Negated, which is incredibly powerful. Omni Negating a card that also has a graveyard effect, and then banishing it is it feels so good, right? I have seen versions of Spyral that run alternate Omni Negates instead of this card, but this is the main one you'll see. The other 2 effects it has is your co-link monsters do double battle damage, which is neat with Access Code Talker sometimes. And once per turn you can banish a card on your opponent's side of the field. This is a on your turn effect. So sometimes going second you'll play this card as an extra way to banish a card on the field that you can't answer with your Cerberus, or you've already used your Unicorn. Next up is Selene. Selene's a relatively new piece of tech in Spyral. Before Spyral got banned in TCG, this card wasn't around, so you couldn't use it. But now you can in Master Duel. This card says if you've got 3 spell cards in your field or in graveyard, it gets 3 spell counters. It gets spell counters equal to the number of spells in your field and graveyard, but you only need 3. Then it lets you special summon a spellcaster from your graveyard, and that would be Master Plan almost 99% of the time, because that will get you another rescue mission. And basically the combo goes: turn Magician Souls and Master Plan into Barricade Borg Blocker, use Rescue Mission to revive Master Plan, go into Selene with Master Plan plus Barricade Borg Blocker, special summon Master Plan, get another rescue mission, right? And, that's just instant +1, +2, because you get another rescue mission, and then you can turn that Master Plan and Selene into an Appaloosa, who is the next card on this list. Appaloosa is your monster effect floodgate. You get multiple negations out of her. Usually you only get Appaloosa for 2 because your board has other interaction, and you don't need Appaloosa for 3 or 4, but sometimes you settle on 3, like I mentioned with the Jet Synchron Halka Fireaxe combo, just getting a 3 material Appaloosa. If you have an extra material because of Super Agent just sitting in your hand on top of your core combo, you can toss him into the Appaloosa summon. Yeah, that's about it, right? This is one of the link payoffs in the link climbing deck. Finally, last card in the deck, Access Code Talker. This is your finisher, your going second killing card, or your third turn card to seal up the deal once you've already stopped your opponent from playing the game. It gets up to 5300 attack off of whatever 3 drop you're using, usually a Trigate or a Selene, and then it attacks for 5300 damage after wiping your opponent's board. And consequently, 5300 plus 2800 damage from Sleeper is over 8000 damage in an OTK, and that's really important in this deck. That little bit of damage synergy. It's the best finisher in a link climbing deck, and I don't think there's any argument about that. Let's go into cards that I'm not running that you often see in Spiral. And let's start with everyone's favorite voice, Spiral Tough. Spiral Tough is a hard no for me in a going first version of the deck because it does absolutely nothing when you draw it, right? I already struggle with cards that are conditionally bad going first, like Where Art Thou? And this guy is absolutely useless going first. If you spend your normal summon on this guy going first, it's just freaking Gemini Elf, man. I mean, you can't unless you can somehow discard your quick fix, which there's no inherent discard effects in this version of the deck. He just does nothing, right? And I hate cutting him because he's actually pretty good going second. But cutting him also lets me cut a card like Reinforcement of the Army because I only have one warrior now, and Rhoda doesn't do anything. So, it saved me 2 deck spaces, and he's bad going first. A lot of, Spiral players swear by this card, swear you have to run at least one because it's so good going second. But even then, I'd rather just have, like, more combo pieces and just combo harder going second than, like, play this guy and blow up a card. Next up, I got like the bookmark list here of cards that I've tested or cards that I would test given the chance. There's Spiral Utility Wire. This is another card you could search off Quick Fix. People will run this card in their deck because you loop Quick Fix 3 times, right? But what happens if you've already drawn a Drone or a Last Resort or a Big Red? Well, your last Quick Fix activation doesn't get a card unless you're running a card like Utility Wire. Well, yeah, I guess, but what if you draw Utility Wire? It's freaking dead in your hand, and I hate it. This card is a hard brick going first, and also even worse going second because it's a trap card that you can't get any other value out of. So it was an easy cut for me. A bunch of Spiral players, swear by this card because it is non-creature interaction. But I just like save Forbidden Drop was called by the grave for that, right? Fully Armed. This is like a fun card. It's like an Axe of Despair for a Super Agent that banishes a card in your opponent's field and a monster when it destroys a monster. It's very cute. I've seen some players play it just to have it against Eldritch. Like they'll search this out with Quick Fix, drop it on a Super Agent or a Tough, attack over the 2800 defense Eldritch because 1000 plus 1900 is 2900, and then they will banish a skill drain off of it or something, which is pretty funny, but it's not good. It's a really bad card. It does have a graveyard effect, and if it'll special summon a Super Agent, but that's so ancillary because it doesn't do enough just by playing it. It also doesn't combo at all, and this is a combo deck. The other Spiral cards are like Mission Recapture, Spy Gal Misty, not technically a Spiral card, but she does like play into the Spiral archetype. You can, return a Super Agent and draw a card, and Charming Resort Side mentions Super Agent, but these cards are all bad. You would never run them. Not even in fringe situations are these cards ever good. Next up is Droll and Lockbird. I've seen a lot of heavy Where Art Thou builds run at least 1 or 2 Droll and Lockbirds. The idea with this card is, let's say I'm not running my tuner package and I throw a Droll and Lockbird here. If I already have Quick Fix and Magician Souls, I can go search out a Droll and Lockbird and just have that in my hand. And it's really hard for an opponent to beat a Spiral board with a Droll and Lockbird in hand, right? You just activate it on their turn, and if they can't go searching from their deck, it's really hard for them to get the material to bust through a Spiral board. I don't like this card because if you draw it and your opponent max sees you, it's really bad because you draw yourself. It's reciprocal. And also, I don't have room for it in my deck. I just run these cards as alternate Where Art Thou targets. But it's a reasonable card to run just as like a secondary Where Art Thou target whenever you've got a full combo. Speaking of Where Art Thou targets and searching out hand traps, DD Crow. DD Crow plus Recital Starling is a combo that people run often instead of Princess Sprite because it's also a level 1 Xyz, and it always gets you a +1 if you run a couple of DD Crows and another piece of interaction. I think this is win more. This deck doesn't need that much extra interaction that is not like Omni Negates like Borreload. And I actually used to run this combo, but I've since decrafted it because I just didn't like it enough. Drawing the DD Crow is fine sometimes because it's a decent hand trap, but it's not a great hand trap, right? Like people are running Skullmeister because negating an ability is a lot better than just banishing a card sometimes. It's probably better against Eldritch, but this deck already has a decent Eldritch matchup anyhow, so I don't know. It's just not something I like, and my extra deck space is so tight I can't just run an extra one. Next up is Parallel Exceed. MBT made a Spiral video not too long before I'm posting this, where Parallel Exceed was like the extender of choice in the deck. It gets you access to a secondary revival card in the extra deck, which is really consistent, called Dugaris. So if you like... a lot of people like Parallel Exceed whenever you can go into a level 1 Link monster like Link Karibo, because you search out your Quick Fix or your Drone or something with Spiral Resort, play it, go into Link Karibo, and then that'll turn on the Parallel Exceed in your hand. That'll get you 2 monsters on the board, and that will start comboing you off, right? bad side is it's a brick. It does nothing by itself. I've already got like 5 conditional bricks in my deck, and I didn't want to run 2 or 3 more, and that's why I just don't like running this card. It's really powerful. It's incredibly powerful in a deck that could consistently get into a level 1 link, or just a link 1 creature, but I just don't like drawing it, so I cut it. And I like more versatile cards. Next up is Upstart Goblin. You can also put Chicken Game here, and in some versions of the deck, I just cut Maxi for 3 Chicken Games. Just hard draw ones like this, and maybe the Sky Striker engine. Some people run that. You can kind of lump those all together. Hard draws like this are just to make the deck more consistent. You cut cards that are chafe, like Maxi or this little tuner package, just to draw into Magician Souls more often, or just your full combo more often. That's a completely reasonable way to play the deck. And I have seen some versions of the deck that are just running like 3 Chicken Game, 3 Upstart Goblins, and they're just turboing into Magician Souls. Now, if you're running a 34 card deck, you draw this card or Arfthal plus a 1-drop way more often. Or 1-star creature more often. Next up is Dangers. I love the Danger package in Spyral. I just wouldn't suggest it or recommend it to anyone trying to get into the deck. It's very fun, and it gives your deck access to like 6 more starters that are almost as good as Magician Souls in the form of Dark Grepher, Armageddon Knight, and Reinforcement of the Army. And the Dangers themselves are almost never dead cards because they cycle through your deck. In a deck that wants discard outlets, why not run the discard outlets that special summon monsters on the field and have other effects, right? It's really powerful. The downside is it takes up a whole lot of deck space. You basically have to cut Arfthals, you have to cut Barrel Goods, you have to cut hand traps often, like sometimes you're not even getting to run Ash. You probably have to cut, Halka Fyrax and Adhara. You can maybe get away with Jet Synchron because Jet Synchron's good in Dangers too. But yeah, it's a really deck space eating engine, but it's really good, and a lot of like historically good Spyral decks use the Danger engine. Relinquished Anima is another card kind of like Linkry that you'll see in a lot of Spyral lists. It's a good going second card because you can just turn any of your dumb 1-star monsters into a removal spell sometimes against like the opponent's extra monster zone. But it's good going second, and I run it in my control deck, but it doesn't come up a lot, so I just don't have the extra deck space for it. Speaking of extra deck going second cards, Zeus. A lot of Spyral lists have Zeus in it. I don't know why. This card is so silly to get into. Like, what are you going to do? Go into a Assembled Nightingale, attack them just to Zeus them? Like, if you're getting off double level 1 Xyz summons off like a quick fix in the Magician Souls, why aren't you comboing, right? Like, it's so rare that you can go into a level 1 Xyz to get into the Zeus when you're not already comboing and breaking your opponent's board that way. I summoned this card maybe once in 100 games. That's how freaking minimal it was. And even that time, I don't think it was necessary for me to win the game. Like, it didn't win me the game on its own. It's like, why am I running this card? And it's just not good. And I kind of threw in Doubter Magician because you'll see that like as a way to get more material onto Zeus in that combo. Boral Sword Dragon. This card's actually really popular in OCG Spyral lists, and I don't know why. Like, sometimes you'll see it as well as Access Code Talker. This deck doesn't need 2 finishers most of the time, and 99% of the games where I summon Access Code Talker, Boral Sword Dragon wouldn't have been better, so it's an easy cut for me. But you'll see it in some lists because people prefer its OTK power. Next up is Cross-Out Designator, and I kind of put Nibiru here just to kind of emphasize what it does. Your deck is weak against hand traps. It's a combo deck. Hand traps are good against combo decks, and a way to get around that is run a bunch of Cross-Out Designators. There is a version of this deck where like you cut a couple, like an Ash, a couple of Maxis, maybe a Foolish Barrel Goods, and you trim the Forbidden Droplets out, and you run Nibiru, Infinite Impermanence, maybe you run the DD Crow package, because DD Crow is really good against your deck, and you run 3 crossouts in that list, and boy, you're really insulated against Maxi. It does make drawing at your combo less likely, but you are a much better going second deck, because you are running a higher number of hand traps. So that's like a really interesting way to play the deck, and I should test this out more. I just crafted these Cross-Out Designators, and I've started kind of toying around, like squeezing them into deck lists. Like, I'll run, instead of Forbidden Droplets, I'll run 2 Infinite Impermanences and a Cross-Out or 2, and like maybe I'll cut a Wear Arfthal for the second Cross-Out. It's a really fun card when it goes off. It's probably a lot better in decks that are like meta, because if you're running like Trizu is the most popular deck in tournaments. Having this card in your deck is really good against Trizu if you are running Trizu cards, right? And Spyral is kind of a rogue fringe deck, and you don't see a lot of mirror matches with it, so it's not quite as good as it is in like strong meta contenders. Twin Twisters is a fun alternate option to cards like Lightning Storm, because it's a super rare instead of an ultra rare, and it's a discard outlet that beats Imperial Order. So like, if you're really struggling against Eldritch decks, and like they always seem to have Imperial Order against you, and you want to run a main deck answer to those back row decks, Twin Twisters is not a bad, cheap alternative, and I did run it in my early Spiral decks. Just having a discard outlet that is also back row removal can be really nice. Speaking of, I do run control versions of Spiral, so like I'll run cards like Lightning Storm, Raigeki, and Harpy's Feather Duster in those decks, and they're pretty good going second, but they obviously don't do anything going first, so in this version of the deck, I just cut them. I'm not going to run any card like that. And then there's the Curious package. I should mention Nightmare Griffin in here too. I'll go like add Nightmare Griffin. Curious plus Nightmare Griffin allows you to like search out cards like Royal Decree, which is a floodgate, or Imperial Order, or Vanity's Emptiness, or Anti-Spell Fragrance. This is a really powerful combo that you'll see a lot of OCG Spiral decks, or even like TCG Spiral decks from back in the day when this deck was legal, and they would run this combo. I don't run it because Master Duel is a best of one format, and I don't want to commit main deck spaces to a floodgate that might not do anything. Right, you have to run like specific floodgates that don't stop your own cards. So it's hard to run Imperial Order in a deck that wants to have an active Spiral Resort, right? But you can run Anti-Spell Fragrance because you've comboed off at that point, or you could run Royal Decree to hose, or Red Reboot to hose Eldritch decks, something like that. Curious is kind of hard to get into the deck sometimes, but there is lines to do it, and it does also bin Rescue Mission or Assault Mission if you can get into it to get extra extension. So it's not a bad card just to run on its own, but it was primarily used for best of three formats. And if Master Duel ever gets a best of three format, you might see me running this Nightmare Griffin Curious combo. The last card in my list, and the card that I most recently cut for the tournament I just played, was Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. This card is a kaiju in your extra deck, and I've even made a video about it. This card's a great out to a bunch of cards like the Arrival Atagnister, or like someone does the five-headed Link Dragon, or some other dumb giant bungus that is immune to card effects. You know, you could summon a bunch of cards in the face of it and then just tribute it off with Underworld Goddess. She also kind of like got other funny effects that like can make her stick on the field against some decks. Like Tri Brigade can't Sure Egg this card because it's immune to non-targeted effects, which is hilarious. It's like metaing the meta and the power creep. It's power creeping the power creep. But yeah, she's a really solid like out to cards like Crooked Cook and the like in ladder. And if I was playing in ladder instead of a tournament, I might cut IP Masquerena or my second double Helix for her just to have an easy out to decks like that. Nightmare Griffin on its own is a reasonable card just to run. It's got an amazing effect. Special summon monsters on the field cannot activate their effects, and it is another discard outlet on your first turn. Kind of like Nightmare Unicorn, you can just use it to discard a card, which is awesome, right? Like, that's pretty good in a deck that needs discard outlets so badly, and that's a perfectly reasonable card to run instead of, say, IP Masquerena or your second double Helix. It's in that effect of not allowing special summon of monsters to activate effects unless they're pointed to. You know, you can set up your board such that like instead of if you have a bunch of extra material, instead of going into a Phoenix, you can go into a Nightmare Griffin and then put your sleeper on the left hand side of Nightmare Griffin, and suddenly all of your effects are active, and your opponent can only activate effects of creatures that are summoned in front of Appaloosa. Appaloosa will negate them, and suddenly they're kind of locked out of special summon creature effects. So that's actually a super powerful ability, and it's kind of like a floodgate that you can toss into the deck sometimes. So that's like a perfectly reasonable card to run too. That's the entire deck tech that's all the cards I've tested that I like. I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you have any other suggestions for like good Spiral cards that I didn't mention, or like good Spiral engines that you like I've seen some people try to run Buster Lock and stuff in it that I've never tried. Go ahead and throw them in the comments. I might respond to them and talk about them. And yeah, that's the full deck tech for my favorite version of Spiral, besides maybe Dangers. Have a good one, everyone. Bye.